Hey everybody, and welcome to Honest HR Nitrous. I am Bill, the company's expert, and this is a weekly live stream where we talk about employment. We talk about how to discover jobs, how to apply for them, how to write resumes, write cover letters, how to answer job interview questions, how to negotiate jobs when you get an offer, and how to excel in your role. That's what we're talking about on this channel, and that's what we talk about in this live stream. This is an interactive live stream, so if you're watching me now, get in the chat, ask me some questions. There is a chat box nearby the video feed, so if you're watching this on a device or on a computer or on a phone, get in the chat. Let me know what you're wondering about, what you're struggling with, and just reactions. Let me know your situation. And we can discuss it, and I will do my best to help you out. The title of this episode is, Are You Screwed? We are going to discuss that. We're going to get into that. This is episode 13 of Honest HR Nitrous. And as always, this is the live stream where we try and keep it real, and we talk about the stupidity and the silliness of some of the processes involved in getting a job, and beyond that, some of the larger issues of things that are involved, such as persuading people, such as business in general or the economy. All that's good. Whatever you want to get into, I'm here to react to when it comes to this type of thing. So get in the chat, ask me some questions. The reality is that you are highly employable. Whoever you are, if you're watching this, you're highly employable. Everybody has talents. Everybody has the ability to do things that's useful. However, as you probably know, in this world, the hoops you have to jump through to get a job or to get employment usually are a bit silly and a bit counterintuitive. And in the case of job search with recruiters and HR departments, they are also highly ineffective. And I've talked about this many times. Now, this is not just my opinion. This has been shown, and it's been shown by people with PhDs who work in universities in the faculty of business or commerce. And they have studied these issues. They've studied the effectiveness of job interviews. They've studied the effectiveness of methods to be able to find the most suitable candidate for a role or hiring practices in general. And they have concluded with data that it's an extremely ineffective process. What we are using right now, what a lot of organizations are using, this method of talking to recruiters after filling in resumes, and then they make a decision based on maybe one or two interviews with you. It's been shown that it's just a highly ineffective process. And why do we persist with it? We persist with it because the alternatives that would be more effective are much more labor intensive. And the more labor intensive, the more cost, and therefore that's why they don't do them. So we've talked about that. But you are employable. You're highly employable. You're awesome. That's why I say that so much on this channel, And like I've said before, if your only talent is the ability to stack boxes or something, out there right now is a company that's looking for someone to stack boxes. They've got warehouses, they have facilities where they need boxes stacked, and they're looking right now for someone like you, and you would be perfect for them. It's just a question of connecting to them. You're over here, and they're over here. You're not aware of each other, right? And that's why these things don't always work out, right? Or it's hard, or we don't find the perfect opportunity for us. We find something less than perfect, and we just sort of stick with it, right? So that's the nature of it. Like I said, get in the chat. I have no agenda. I have no monologue I'm going to launch into. I would like to hear from you guys. I see there are 18 people here right now. Get in the chat and let me know what's up with you. I'll be happy to help you out. Or if there's a topic you'd like me to cover that I could speak to. For some people, the other thing is that their occupation, their job, that's the source of their identity. It's also the source of their self-confidence. It's what they do. It makes them feel good about themselves. This is what I contribute. This is why I'm a good person. I'm bringing in income and all this kind of stuff. And so as a result, if you are between jobs, usually a lot of people, you feel about this tall, because aside from maybe the practical difficulties of being between jobs, you have no income or less income coming in. Aside from that, it's a shot to your confidence, your self-esteem, all that kind of stuff. You feel that, if you see your role as the breadwinner, you're not accomplishing that at the moment. And so, we're at our lowest point that we will ever be at in our lives, with the possible exception of a death of a loved one. We're at our lowest point. And in that point, that's when you have to go cap in hand to some arrogant, incompetent people that, might act in a very rude and disrespectful way, and, get on your knees and beg for a job, basically. That's what it feels like for a lot of people. It's a very stressful process. And I've always wondered why it has to be that way. It doesn't have to be this way. Some people don't experience this at all, but a lot of people do. If you're experiencing that, you are not alone, and you are 100% normal. I see there are some people in the chat. That's awesome. That's what we need here. So get in the chat. Rawless, if I'm saying that right. Is LinkedIn a waste of effort at this point? The quick answer is no, but it depends on what you're trying to do. You see, LinkedIn, it started off as something like just awesome, like hands down. And then it was sold to Microsoft, and Microsoft has a history of almost everything that they buy, they basically run it into the ground. So my fear was that they were going to do that with LinkedIn. They haven't so far. It's kind of, it hasn't been great with them in charge, but what they're trying to do is they're trying to turn it into the Facebook of business. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get everyone and their brother on there, and they're trying to get everyone to constantly babble about, and post about the stupidest, most mundane things that you're doing in your life, and having it a place where people go to babble about, everything they're doing. And unfortunately, they've succeeded. So it's really watered down what's on there. Now people use it to my awareness, people use it for two things that directly relate to finding employment. One is it's a place where a lot of recruiters are actively posting jobs, and they're actively searching to find candidates, irrespective of whether they have a job posted or not. Okay, so that's one thing that's done on LinkedIn. The other thing is the networking aspect of it. So if you wanted to reach out to organizations where they may employ someone like you can do that with LinkedIn. That's how I've always used it. And I have recommended that people stay away from the recruiter side of it. Now, that may not be universal. Like, a lot of people do get a job through LinkedIn. They apply to jobs on LinkedIn. They, connect with recruiters, and the recruiters recruit them and say, you should come and apply for this role, and people do get hired that way. I'm not going to say it's not a thing. It feels very slimy, and it feels very silly because there's so much competition on there. So you could do that, but it's not really the primary source of value on LinkedIn. The reason you would use LinkedIn, in my opinion, the real untapped gold mine, is the networking element. Okay. You could reach out to all kinds of companies. You can look inside of the companies. You can see all the people there. There's so much value there. That's how, I've built up a consulting business doing that, where I just did tons of informational interviews with CEOs. Like over 5 years ago, I did this. I built up a consulting business. People that I didn't know, I just reached out to them. I discovered them on LinkedIn. I basically said, I'd love to get your opinion on this, your expert opinion on this industry, blah, blah. And then I met them and talked to them. And then some of them ended up being clients of mine. So, I mean, I'm a big believer in that's how you can create opportunities. That's what a lot of executives and stuff use it for. They reach out to organizations using LinkedIn. If you are interested in that topic, I'm not going to babble on about it, but if you are interested in that, if that's is intriguing to you, I have a video where I go in much greater detail and I show you how you can use LinkedIn to do this. It's linked to in the description box of this live stream. So just go and view the description underneath this video feed. And there's a link to a bunch of videos. And there's one video in there called How Successful People Get Jobs. So watch that video. That will show you how you can use LinkedIn to do this. But no, it's not a waste of effort, but it may seem like that because there's such a lot of crap on there and a lot of fluff and a lot of annoying fake people that feed you lies, and they tell you, ooh, apply for this job, and then they ignore your application, basically. So there's a lot of that going on there. V8 Super Special says, one thing that struck me is how the middle management levels are so stagnant, and in particular, the market seems so close for that kind of job offers. ATM. I don't know what ATM is. Tell me what ATM. Don't use acronyms with me. It's a good idea not to. A lot of them are industry specific, and I'm not down on the latest lingo that all the kids are using today. So just spell things out. Okay, well, listen, middle management. I mean, I don't know if there's any broad trends, like whether there's higher turnover at the worker level or the professional level or the middle management level or the executive level. They all seem to churn. They all could well churn depending on what industry you're in. But usually people that are in mid-management, usually they're very busy. And usually they know their stuff. That's the general trend. They just tend to know their stuff. Obviously, there's exceptions to all of this. You get some industries where people get to the mid-management and they stay there for 25 years, I worked in such an industry. I worked in the railroad. That was the first industry I started out in my professional career. And I mean, it's a seniority-driven thing. At least it was back when I was in it. And you get people that just, once they make manager, they're there for, until they retire kind of thing. So in other areas like banking and stuff, I don't think we see that. I think we see more of a churn. It's like a sink or swim type situation. And some people sink. And then some people get promoted upwards into executive management. So it could be for the industry you're in, V8 Super Special. I'm not doubting that for a moment. But broader trends across the board, I'm not sure. I don't know if there's any trends on that. And I kind of don't care about broad trends. I only care about what you're doing in your specific situation, because that trumps any broad trend. You know what I mean? NC Worker says, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to NC Worker and to everyone. David, my buddy David 007 there. If a recruiter needs a reference letter and I don't have a good relationship with my previous boss, what to do? If I provide reference letter from another person, wouldn't that be suspicious? No, not at all. Like if they're looking for your last boss, okay, the obvious thing you could say there is, well, if you already have left, you can say my last boss was upset that I left. They did not take it very well. So I don't know if they would be the best person to contact. Oh, excuse me. I'm still under the weather with a flu. That's why my voice sounds funky and has that sexy Barry White quality that we all love from our friendly neighborhood ex-CEO. If it's a boss that you're currently working, the answer is even more obvious. Say, no, I don't want them to know that I'm leaving. So that's why I can't provide you with a letter of recommendation or a reference. Now, if they specifically want a reference letter from your previous boss, if they've said, I want this, give it to me, okay, I would say that. Like, I would say we did not part, unfortunately, we did not part on good terms. And for that reason, I don't think there's anything to be gained by trying to hit them up for a reference or, asking for a letter of recommendation. Okay, they were upset that I left, and so unfortunately that tarnished our personal relationship. Okay, so I would answer something like that. If they haven't specifically asked for a reference from your previous boss, I would give them references from previous coworkers as like a sort of next best thing. And then if you can get a reference from another boss that you worked for going back even further, that would also be an acceptable substitute. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. The feed is moving quite quickly here, so that's actually kind of good. I'm glad. Thank you for participating. If I provide a reference from another person, wouldn't that be suspicious? No, not necessarily, unless they've asked you specifically, right? Usually they ask for, like, the standard thing is like 3 references. I know for management jobs, sometimes they ask for 9. Like, they say, we want 3 previous positions you've been in. And in those positions, we want your superior, your peer, and a subordinate for each of those positions, right? They'll have very specific requirements for references. So I've been in that situation where you have to like dredge up these people. But no. And if they do have a problem with that, that might be considered a red flag. Let's see here. Rawless says valid points. Thanks. You're welcome. Auntie K says, hi, Bill. You gave me a great brief answer in your previous live stream to my question about salary ranges given by hiring managers. If understood correctly, I should just ignore what they told me about the salary and hang on until they make me an offer. Listen, Auntie K, here's the deal, okay? Get used to thinking like this. They are your adversary, okay? If they had their way, they would pay you nothing, and the law would require you to work for them. If this was like, if you could grant them a wish, that's what they want. If they could grant you a wish, it would be that these people would pay you an annual salary of $20 million a year with a bonus of an extra 50, right? And if you work overtime, more than 40 hours a week, you get triple time. You know what I mean? Like that would be your wish, right? These people are your adversaries. You have opposite goals. So that being said, do not get your information about this topic from them, right? What's a reasonable amount of money to pay for someone to be paid in this role? Don't get that from them. They want you to believe it's very, very low, right? What's the range that they could pay? Don't get that from them. They obviously have a vested interest in making you think one thing when the reality is quite different, right? So the way you do this is you get your information about what is reasonable that I should make, what can I realistically get, should I make a counter offer? All those questions, you don't base those based on them. You base it based on you, right? Now, the most obvious question is, how much are you worth? Okay, like what's a reasonable amount to hold out for, right? If they're offering that much, great, accept it. If they're not offering, then counter offer and say, I demand this, right? But what is that number, right? Well, you don't get that number from them because they'll try and convince you you're worth nothing. So you should work for nothing and be thankful for it, right? You get that number by looking at evidence from elsewhere. The most obvious thing is that if you have a second offer from another employer and they're wanting to pay you 60, right? They've said, we're offering you a job where you can work for us and make 60, but these people are offering you 50, right? The evidence suggests that you are worth 60. It's not unreasonable for you to ask for 60 because you have someone that obviously feels that your value is 60 and or up, right? Or higher, and they're offering you 60. So no one can make a compelling argument that you're not worth 60 because someone is willing to pay you 60, right? Like, this is the evidence, but it's not coming from these people. They want to convince you you're worth 20 and you should be happy with 25, right? And maybe they'll say that. They'll say, oh, the range for this job, it ends at 30. That's the highest we'll go, right? Just so that you accept an offer from them for 25 or 30, right? Okay. So what you're worth is not based on anything that comes from them. They have a vested interest in making you believe you're worth very, very little. Okay. So negotiation, the way it really works, is about options. Go and get other options. Okay. Go and get other interviews lined up with companies. If they're interviewing you for a job that pays 100, right? And you're in the final 3, you've been down there for 3 interviews and they're taking it very seriously and they seem very interested, that tells you something, right? If they've given you an offer for something like, above 30 or whatever, that also is hard evidence that you're worth more than 30, right? This is how you find out that information. Your value is not what you think it is. It's what other people will pay you. That's what decides it. That's what determines it. Okay? So that's what these negotiations, that's what it's about. So it doesn't matter what they think or what they say. You ask for what you feel is reasonable. And what you feel is reasonable is not determined by your imagination. It's determined by the world, real world evidence, right? Okay, so that's how this stuff works, okay? It doesn't matter. It's not a question of persuading these people that you're worth a certain amount. Because like, as an employer, you can make whatever logical argument you want to demonstrate that, you're worth 100 or 150. But if I feel you're worth 30, I'm just going to dismiss any argument you make and say, no, the way it works is we pay 30. So yes or no to 30, right? It's not about persuasion. Okay, so the way you do it, the way you succeed in negotiation is you go out and you get several options. So either in a perfect world, you would get other job offers. Now, if you can't do that, at least have many other interviews lined up for decent paying jobs. And then if these people turn you down, okay, because you asked for too much, right? Then at least you have things lined up, that you have other options. So you're not completely screwed, which is the title of this episode of Honest HR Nitrous, by the way. Does that make sense? There's a lot of principles all stacked on top of each other for how you do negotiation, right? In order to know what to do, you have to understand how things work. And there's many elements to how things work. And they're usually based on the fact that people are not just working with you. They're not just telling you how it works. They're lying to you. Negotiation is an adversarial situation, right? You want them to pay more, or they want to pay less. So they're going to lie, right? Your thing continues. It says, NTK, is there anything more to this? Just go through enough processes until someone offers you enough money. Any way for me to find out early which companies will end up lowballing me before I waste the time of going through their entire recruitment process? Listen, okay, we're all human beings, and you know what really pisses us off? It's the perception that someone is wasting our time. Job search is not fun. And usually, like I said at the beginning, we're stressed when we do it. We're stressed out. We hate the process. Our confidence and self-esteem are taking a shot. We're at our lowest point in terms of confidence and self-esteem. And then on top of it, you got to deal with people that usually are rude and unprofessional, to add insult to injury. But although we feel like this, don't think in terms of like, you're wasting my time, right? Because first of all, that's very arrogant. You may not feel it, and I hate to say it, but it is. It comes across as being very arrogant. If it makes sense for you to work there, if you're honestly a good fit for their role and they're prepared to pay you a good amount of compensation for it, then investigating that with them shouldn't be a waste of time, right? For either of you, okay? That's the reality, okay? What determines your value and what determines what makes sense for you to entertain is based on real world evidence. It's not based on what anybody says it is or what anybody thinks it is. It's based on evidence. Okay, you have to be very practical about this. So if nobody else is offering you a job, how can you hold out and say, well, I'm not worth 50, I'm worth 110? Like, how can you justify that? Maybe if that's what you think, great. But if nobody's offering you 110, right? How can you hold to that principle? What evidence is there that you are in fact worth 110, right? So go out and just pursue stuff. You don't have any loyalty to these people. So if they're, they're putting you through an endless, interminable process that goes on forever and it doesn't seem to ever get anywhere. And then at the end, it sounds like they're going to offer you something very, very low, right? If you have other opportunities right now, then obviously focus more on the other opportunities. This is how stupid this process is when you deal with recruiters. They also introduced recently this new kind of strategy where, because so many people apply for their job when they post it online, they intentionally make the process long, convoluted, stupid, and interminable, just intentionally to weed people out. Because most people will say, it's not worth this, screw this, and then they're out. Whereas a few people, and their theory goes, the few people that are actually passionate about getting that particular job, they will go through this retarded process to the end. There'll be the few that make it through to the end, and in so doing, it signals that they really, really want that particular job. And that was one of the things that the recruiters had to determine anyway. Do you specifically really want this job, or are you just looking for any job? And this job isn't particularly, fitted to you. You just need a job. That's why you're here, right? So that's been a thing that's emerged recently in the last 5 years. Right? And that really complicates things. Now, what's my answer to this? My answer is to say, screw this entire process, learn about networking, get a job through networking. Even if you're an introvert like me, if you do it right, and if you know what to do, you realize that you can totally do this. This is not this horrible thing that most people think it is. It's not about being slimy. It's not about having to schmooze with people. No, it's something far more intelligent and targeted, and it's not this nebulous thing. It's a very specific thing, right? Learn about that stuff. And, it's also the number one way how people get jobs. You don't hear a lot of people talking about it because recruiters don't want to talk about it because it's a conflict of interest. Recruiters don't want to recommend that you don't go through a recruiter, that's the conflict of interest, right? I'm not a recruiter, so I can talk about this freely. If you go to the average employee, you go to, say 1,000 people who are currently working now, and you ask them, how did you get this job? Most people won't say, I responded to an internet job posting where I didn't know anyone at the company, and I just went through the standard HR department process where I talked to a recruiter, and then I did a job interview, and then I got hired. Most people will not say that. Most people will say, I got some form of networking. Either I reached out to the company, or I know someone at the company, maybe a former coworker, something like that, maybe a former boss, right? That moved from my company to this company, and then I reached out to them and said like, hey, I noticed your company is posting some jobs, can you get me in? Or you didn't notice that their company is posting any jobs. They didn't post any jobs, but you said, can you get me in? And they got you in, right? The most common answer is it's some form of networking. That's how most people get hired. Now, don't take my word for this. If this is like all new information for you, don't take my word. Who am I? You don't know me. Go and do your own research on this, okay? And see for yourself. This is the reality, okay? This is very important for a lot of people to do, especially people that are not getting very far in their job search efforts by playing the game of, corporate HR departments, by replying to internet posted jobs and talking to recruiters. Most people actually don't get hired that way, despite what they present to you and they want you to believe, right? If you do, you'll be stepping into this much more welcoming, wider world where there's all kinds of employment opportunities. If you still kind of don't believe me on this, think of like places where you've worked. Think of the people they've hired while you've been there. Were they all hired because the jobs were posted publicly? Did you see those job postings? What about managers and things? Were those jobs all posted publicly? You saw it coming before it was announced that you have a new boss, or your department is now being run by a new person, or you know what I mean? Chances are you'll see like, yeah, you're right. I didn't see any job being posted, and then they hired someone, And if you have seen that, there's some evidence right before your own eyes. That's networking. That's where people are talking to other people to fill a role. Incidentally, I cover all this in that course. If you want to know where to go to get that, my version of it is right here, my Get Hired course. That's where I talk about all my recommendations on how to get a job, including all the networking stuff. It's there. Check it out. There's a link in the description. Okay, where did I leave off here? Let's see here. Okay, anti-K, we did that. Mohammed says, why do employers ask employees for self-evaluation end of year wrap-up? What is the best way to approach it? Okay, here's some facts on the annual performance review, which is what you're talking about. Usually it's tied to any update to your compensation. And usually every year in most countries, there'll be some kind of update based on cost of living increase, if nothing else. So your pay might go up by like 1% or something like that. In addition, there might be bonuses. There might be performance bonuses that are tied to you. There might be like profit sharing or stuff that everyone in the company gets. So it makes sense that if they have to do a performance evaluation and give you feedback on how you're doing, they do it then, and then they tie it to your update revised compensation for the next year. Okay. Now, this has been studied, not by me, but by professionals that do research on this kind of stuff in universities, in the faculty of business, people with PhDs. What they found was that when it comes to the annual performance review, first of all, they found that they were useless. They don't add any value. The other thing they found, interestingly, is that almost universally, everybody hates doing them. Not just the employees, but the managers. The managers hate being forced to do these with all their employees. Okay? So they're ineffective and everyone hates doing them. Why do they still do them then? It's because you have to provide some feedback for your employees for a variety of reasons. And this is a great vehicle to force people to do it, right? As we all know, if let's say you're a boss and your employee is doing a bad job, would you wait 11 months before you tell them that they're doing that task the wrong way? Of course not. You would tell them immediately. The more immediate the feedback, the more effective and the quicker they'll improve, right? So waiting an entire year to tell someone this is what we think of you and this is where we think you could improve is ridiculous, right? And everyone knows it's ridiculous, okay? So your question is, what's the best way to approach it? Here's the best way to approach it. First of all, the odds are is that your boss hates doing it with you. They are being forced to do it with you. It's part of their job to do it with you. They have to do it in writing to show that they have done it, okay? They usually make everyone feel upset, so you hear things that you don't agree with, okay? Go in. Oh, and the other fact was that most managers realize that they are ineffective. It's not like they think this is really useful, but it's not. It's like, no, they know it's not useful, but they're forced to do it anyway. And that's one of the reasons why they don't like it. Okay, so go in, be prepared to hear some feedback that is either wrong or stupid or unhelpful or all three, and ignore it for the most part. If you don't agree with it, unless they've said this is like a very serious problem that you have to work on, just ignore it, because they have to say something negative usually. They can't just say, everything's great, you're wonderful, we love you. They have to give you points of improvement. And a lot of times they don't know what to say, so they'll just make up something. So just take it with a grain of salt. Do your best to sort of like, agree with them. Yeah, very useful. Thank you. I appreciate your feedback. And then forget it. Okay? That's what it is. Obviously there are exceptions, but that's the general rule, and that's how the general advice I'd give people. Okay, the rarest one says, if you do good, what? If you do too good, need no improvement. Okay? They have to give you more money, and if you don't know, they're all... First of all, before we go any further, they don't have to give you more money. I just want to say, I take exception to that. They don't have to do anything. They have to comply with the law, and if the law doesn't say they have to give you more money, they don't. Okay, just let's be clear. And if you don't know, there's always room for improvement. They do. They don't have to. Well, can't argue with that. Could it going to be a group interview and you having what? And you maybe having a lot of extras to learn to do maybe things that can kill? Well, I'm sorry, the rarest one. Unfortunately, you lost me on that. I can't get past the grammar. I don't know what you're saying. So if you could maybe rephrase that in a way I could maybe understand what you're trying to say, that would be helpful. I'd like to give you a helpful answer on what you're wondering about, but you just need to phrase it better. Okay, we seem to have gotten to the end of the feed. Get in the chat. Let me know what you're wondering. There are 32 people here, so tell me what you're wondering, what you're struggling with. Hopefully I didn't bite anyone's head off, so people are afraid to do that. But we've gotten some intelligent questions. Quite a few of them, actually. Yeah, this is the thing. It's like, I don't know if you've ever been ghosted. I don't know if you ever dealt with, a rude hiring manager, rude interviewer, a rude recruiter. It's a silly process. It really is. Like, I understand the reasons for it, and I understand what their perspective is on both sides, but it just amounts to a very silly process. That's why, not to sound like a broken record, but if there's one piece of advice I could give everyone, it's tune in to how to get a job through networking. If you are an introvert, this may not come naturally to think like this, but you are certainly capable of doing it. If you can ask someone about, how they do their job, then you can do networking, because that's basically what it is. It's having a frank conversation with people like you, with other introverts. Usually the boss of an introvert is an introvert. That's usually what we see. If you're in a technical role and you're an introvert, usually your boss is going to be an introvert in a technical role, right? Usually. And if that's the case, it's like you talking to your boss. Maybe they did your job for many years and now they're the boss. So they know all about your job. Can you have a conversation about your job with someone who could be your boss? They've been in that role themselves. If you can, then you can do networking. It's nothing more. It's not about like going to a wine and cheese party and schmoozing with a bunch of stuck up pompous people. That's not what it is. It can be for people who are into that, but that's not what it is for you. You probably wouldn't enjoy it. You probably are not that great at it. And those people wouldn't really recognize you as like the most amazing person because you're different than them. They go to wine and cheese parties for a start. You don't. So they look at that as a negative, right? But yet if you talk to like a technical introvert who's a manager of a group of introverts in a technical role, they look down on people who go to wine and cheese parties. They say those people are a bunch of pretentious pricks. They don't know anything about doing real work, right? Whereas you do. And they look at you and they see, you get it. You're valuable, right? And they're also the people that are hiring for technical positions in their group, right? So hopefully I'm giving you an idea of like how this would go, right? So tune into that stuff. I've got videos. Other people have videos. There's other sources of information. Go learn it. Go start doing it. You'd be amazed how much good opportunities you can uncover by doing that. And you learn a ton in the process. You learn a ton about what people do, how they do their jobs. If it's an area very similar to your own, that might be very interesting. If it's an area not related to your own, it might still be interesting, depending on, your taste. Excuse me. I'm still under the weather. Zanzuki says, "Hello, Bill. Hope you are doing well today." I am doing well. I still have this lingering flu type affair that is causing my voice to be a bit deeper than normal. V8 Super Special says, "What if one is kind of pigeonholed in a technical role? All my past assignments had just management duties, but it seems there are tremendous pullback to just have me do technical stuff." Well, here's the deal. Have you ever heard of someone changing careers? I'm sure you have. People do this every day, right? You can be pigeonholed. You can be stuck in a place where people think that you're only good for one thing. Now, maybe that's true. Maybe you think you're great at everything, but really the reality is that you're really not that great at most things, but you are good at one thing, okay? Alternatively, maybe they're just a bunch of jackasses. Maybe they just haven't seen your value, or they're underestimating you. They're dismissing you and saying you're only good for this, right? In which case, you're being underutilized, right? Now, the solution to that, the way I think, okay, one possibility is to try and change their minds. I'm not going to say that's impossible. Some people do it. If I was in that situation, that wouldn't be my approach. I would leave. I would go to another place where they do appreciate you, where they see your traits and your skills and your background and your education, your experience. They see that as really valuable, okay? And they're impressed by that. And you go there and they think you're a much more capable person and they put you in charge of a bunch of other things. Right? And let me tell you, there's a lot of fish in the sea. I'm someone who's worked across 5 industries. I haven't had like one job for 30 years. Some people do that. I haven't. I've jumped around quite a bit. And there's a lot of things out there. There's way more things out there than you imagine there are, including some jobs that, would be really perfect for you that you have no conception that exist right now. Okay? So how do people change careers? Well, they don't change careers by going through recruiters. I covered this on my last live stream earlier today. Because the reasoning is that a lot of recruiters, their metric they apply to everything to assess your value is years of experience. How many years of experience do you have doing this? And then, oh, you have 5. And they ask somebody else, oh, well, they have 20. So they must know how to do that job better than you, right? Well, according to a recruiter, yes, they would be better than you at it, right? We all know that that's crap, but that's how they think. Right? So the problem is if you're changing careers, by definition, you have no experience in the job role that you're applying to. They look at you as, no, unqualified. How could you think you're qualified for this? You've never done it before, right? That's how they think. That's how they assess people. But as we all know, people change careers all the time. And just because you've never done something before doesn't mean that, you can't do it. You could be awesome at it. And we see that. That does happen. It happens more than people want to admit, certainly more than recruiters want to admit, right? But they don't get those jobs by going through a recruiter. They get those jobs through networking, and someone gives them a chance, right? Number one, I've met you. We get along. You seem to be professional. You've got great communication skills. You do seem to have technical chops in similar things, like you have the components to it, right? You've shown passion for this role, usually by the fact that you're here talking to me about it. We didn't post a job. You're just here seeing if, if you guys can use someone like me, right? You know what I mean? You've shown all this stuff. So they go, you know what? We have a vacancy. I'm going to give you a chance. It'll be maybe a probationary kind of thing, maybe like, just baby steps, and we'll see if you can hack it. And if you can, great, Right? That's how people change careers, right? That's how a lot of people get jobs, right? I'm not looking for the most qualified candidate. I'm not even looking for the least risky candidate. I'm looking for someone I can trust. That's usually how a lot of jobs go. Usually a lot of management jobs go. You and I have worked together before. I know you're not a psychopath. I know you're not a criminal. I know that, we tend to work pretty well together. I know that you're a hard worker, and if I give you something, you honestly try and do a great job. I'm going to put you in charge of this, right? Maybe technically I could find people that do have more technical skills in that area, but I don't know them. I don't know if I would trust them to take care of this properly. It's like trusting a stranger, right? Maybe there's some less risky people out there. They've never had an argument with anyone in their life. They've never had a career gap at all, But I don't know if they're right for this either. I want someone that I feel, I can sleep easy at night knowing that this is in good hands. So I'm going to get you, right? That's how this stuff usually works. It's not all a conspiracy theory. That's the motivations for people for filling these roles. Okay, so if you feel pigeonholed, maybe these people just are not seeing your value. That's a possibility. In which case, go and talk to people that will see your value, that appreciate the things you have, that want to give you a chance. You've shown passion, you've shown those other things, right? And they'll give you a chance. Try networking. V8 super special industry is IT, by the way. How could I have? How I wouldn't have guessed that for a million years. No, I'm playing on stereotypes here. IT is got a lot of technical introverts in it. IT is a lot of people that are not tuned into networking because they are technical introverts, right? So it's very much a situation where you stay in your lane. We tell you how it works and you just believe us, right? It's very much that type of situation. No one has told me about a job. I don't see one in front of me. Therefore, they don't exist. It's like that sounds like IT. Auntie K says, great answer so far. Thanks, Bill. You're absolutely welcome, Auntie K. I'm glad that this is helping you. I'm just babbling about stuff off the top of my head. So, let me know what you're wondering about, or if you have any questions, and I will give you my honest opinion on it. There's a lot of, listen, I'm coming from the perspective of someone that, you were lied to by a lot of companies. You were lied to by schools in the beginning, when they, starting with the high school guidance counselor, the person you go to and they're supposed to be experts in careers and they tell you what you're suitable for. And then, you might go talk to them and they assess you in whatever way. And then they give you this sort of insulting kind of recommendation, like, well, you'd be great at polishing doorknobs at a gas station kind of thing. You said you like polishing, you like clean things. So therefore you would be a fit for, it's like, screw off. It starts with that. And then it goes to schools where they don't have a clue about how the real world works, but yet they're going to teach you about it, right? And then that continues into the world of employment where, there's a lot of incentives for them managing what their employees think about them and about other employers, right? Right? There's a lot of propaganda that goes on there and a lot of sort of thought management, shall we say. And it continues. And the thing is, a lot of people just eat the stuff up and they never question it. They told me, so therefore it must be true, right? Well, for some of us who have actually gone out and done stuff that they said couldn't be done, because it can be done, but they just don't want you to think it can be done, right? You realize what a smokescreen all this stuff is. And the hiring process, as done by a lot of corporate HR departments, is one of the most fake, artificial processes out there, where, it's filled with misinformation. It's filled with self-serving things that, they want you to think that make their life easier, but are bad for you. That's why I do this. That's why we talk about this stuff. And the people that sort of tune into this now, and I'm not asking anyone to just blindly believe what I'm saying. I'm encouraging you to go out and question, for example, they say, you're only worth this much, right? Well, instead of just blindly accepting it because the person told you, go out and put that to the test. Go out and see if you can get someone offering you a job for more than that, right? And don't just go through the official process for that. Go around it. There's no law that says you can't talk to whoever you want to. If you ask them, could I talk to you? And they say, sure. Absolutely no law or reason why you can't go talk to them and have a conversation and ask them stuff. Maybe they end up liking you. And if there's a job where they work, maybe they end up either hiring you or recommending you for it because they know you and you guys get along. That's half the challenge of finding a candidate. Zanzuki says, honestly, I just don't think I'm capable of getting a job, mostly because of my lack of experience in the given field I want to go into. Bullshit. Pardon my French. Zanzuki, you are an incredibly employable person. You are highly talented. Okay. Now, what do they say about experience, right? There's all these recruiters and all these other people that would love you to believe that, oh no, this job can only be done by a super specialist. You have to be extremely special to be able to do this job, right? Now, yes, there are some jobs in this world where that might be true. Okay, if you're a neurosurgeon that only does brain surgery on a particular part of the brain and does a certain operation, sure, gotcha. I'm not going to argue with you. But the vast majority of jobs, incorrect. And we see this all the time. People that have never done something before, that interested parties like recruiters would have you believe that, oh no, you need a very special and specific list of skills and experiences to be able to do this job, right? We see people coming into that job, never done anything like it before, and they are masters of it. They crush it, absolutely. Right? We also see the opposite. We see people that have been selected by this painstakingly meticulous hiring process and modern hiring process, where they've had group discussions about, like, who are we going to hire, and each person is vetted, and to the nth degree, and they select someone, and that person lasts a month because they sucked and they couldn't do the job, right? The fact that, like, have you been to school, Zanzuki? If you've been to school, then you probably have done 90% of the things they're looking for someone to do, right? Even if you've never had a career job in your life, okay, they say, oh, sorry, you have no experience. The reality is that you have the experience. And I say this to people who have concerns that, I have no work experience. How can I get a job? Well, what do they look for? What does work experience actually get you? Okay. Presumably you have the technical skills before you get the job, right? So you have some kind of educational qualification, or if they trained you on the job, the learning curve can't have been too steep because, they hired you and then they trained you and then you're doing the job. So, I mean, it can't be like rocket surgery, right? It can't be brain rocketry, what they're talking about. So, you've been to school. So what have you done at school? You have experience completing assignments. You have experience meeting deadlines. You have proven abilities to meet deadlines, to pass tests, to be diligent enough to have a good work ethic, to be highly trainable. You've followed instructions. You've been able to speak up and seek help when you need it, right? You've had the ability to go and clarify expectations with your instructor or whoever, if it's not clear, right? The ability to work independently, the ability to work with others in a group, right? You've done all that stuff. What more are they looking for apart from the technical skills? And presumably you have those. That's why we go to school for, technically. You've got everything they need, right? The only thing you don't have is for them to, like, look at you and see your value and say, this person can do it. Right? So if you're not getting that through the methods that you're using, try other methods. And as I say, the default thing I always recommend is networking. That's where they'll give you a chance. Because 1,000 people may apply for a job, but only one person showed up to talk to the hiring manager, and that was you. And you guys got along, and you asked intelligent questions, and they liked you. Which person do you think they're going to hire now? Are they going to hire a person that they haven't yet met? They don't know if they get along with them. They don't know if they have good communication skills or they can act professionally. No, they're going to hire you. That's how networking works. It's not a conspiracy. You earned it by going there, and you gave them what they're looking for. You gave them a demonstration of what it would be like to work with you. Here's what it'd be like to interact with me on a daily basis. This is what it's like. What do you think? Right? So don't get that inferiority complex, Sanzuki, because you don't have a lack of experience. If you know what to do, you can get hired pretty quickly, despite that. Aaron says, hey, Bill, what is your opinion of in-person job fairs and hiring events? Are these worthwhile? For certain things, yes. Yes, if you're coming out of college and they organize these events, like maybe through a university or something, it can be useful, right? It introduces you to some of the bigger employers, right? You can go down there, you can talk to them, you can get their business cards, you can ask them what they do. You can get a sense for, like, maybe a bit of their culture, right? I mean, now you're getting the sort of like polished salesman version of their culture, right? But it's the image they're trying to present to you. as opposed to the reality, but at least you're getting that. So it's not a waste of time, but is it the be all end all? Like, it's the thing that everyone should do and that's where you're going to get your job? No. I would, if it's a one-day thing, I would do it for one day, but I would also pursue a job search campaign by doing other things, certainly. And the big one, of course, is networking. You can, as I said at the beginning of this live stream, there is a link to a video I did that shows you how to do this stuff, where you find all the employers around you. So if you are located in a city or something, or a part of a big city, or you're located out in the country, out in the boonies somewhere, wherever location you are, and you want to work at a physical job where you commute and you physically go to the employer, therefore they have to be within, say, 100 miles of where you live, right? You can find all the employers around you using Google Maps. And then using LinkedIn, now that you have these list of employers, because they hire people with your skill set, you can now see inside those companies with LinkedIn to the individuals and see what role the individuals are in, and like, this person is the head of the department where I would work in. So, that's the person I should reach out to, right? You can also use LinkedIn to then reach out to them. Like, you can send the message, right? So, you know what I mean? Like, knowing how to do that's incredibly useful. So check out that video I did. There's a link to it in the description box of this video. It's called How Successful People Get Jobs. It just gives you an idea of the type of things you can do. So in addition to going to job fairs and stuff, in addition to applying for some posted jobs, I would also do this. Okay. Anti-K says, what's your opinion on anonymous employee surveys? Pulse survey, many managers send a couple times a year. I would be wary of them. The real feedback that's relevant will come organically. It'll come by you talking face to face with your boss. Okay, so they will be able to gauge your feelings, your thoughts on different things. It'll be informal, and they'll be able to use it. Okay, anything that comes through like a survey is, if it's a mandatory survey, I would beware, because you never know. They might be using it for nefarious purposes also, right? Like they could say, what do you think of our company? Like multiple choice. We're great. We're okay. We're neutral. We suck. Or, we're criminals or something like that, right? Maybe they want this information just to genuinely gauge the morale, but a secondary purpose is that they can find out who answered were criminals and possibly move them out of the company, right? So I would be wary of them. If it's a voluntary survey, I'm suspicious of surveys because of the work I've done, that surveys are only done when people have extreme opinions. When you go to a restaurant and they have a little card, like, tell us how we did, right? Do you like what your experience here? There's two types of people that fill out those surveys. The people that are delighted and they want to thank the restaurant emphatically for being awesome. And the people that are mad, they hated it and they want to vent, right? No one in the middle fills out those surveys. Nobody says, you were kind of meh. Okay, I guess. What's the incentive to fill out the survey if that's what you think? None. It's just a waste of your time, so you don't do it. So whichever way you slice it, I would be wary of these. And if they're mandatory, I would give a very diplomatic answer. I wouldn't say anything that could get you into trouble, because even if they claim it's anonymous, that may not be the case. You continue. You said, should I give honest feedback on these, or am I just putting myself at risk for being found out and labeled as disgruntled? Yes, the latter. Listen, you can only guess to their motivation for doing this. If it's coming from a good place, then they get bonus points for wanting to do the right thing and wanting to First of all, for caring what their employees think in the first place. Most employers don't. You wouldn't if you were in their position because you're paying them to do a job. It's like a rich person hiring servants and paying them well. Do they then go to their servants and say like, is there anything that you have a problem with? Because I'd like to change. Your attitude, unless we're talking about extreme things, your attitude is going to be like, look, it might not be perfect, but then again, I am paying you very well. So I expect that you will just suck it up and get on with it if it's reasonable, right? You know what I mean? That's kind of the reality. At least that's the reality that employers think. Whether it's justified or not, that's how they think. And it has been known that they will use it as a tool to retaliate against people that aren't, they're either not thinking the desirable thing or they're not towing the party line, whatever. It has been known. Those are the bad companies. So I would play it safe. Why take a risk? Like, what's the benefit for you answering truthfully if you have a very unpopular negative opinion? What would be the incentive for you to voice it? The only incentive is that you feel like you're helping them by telling them how bad a job they're doing at something. They're not going to interpret it that way. They're going to say, you clearly have the problem with us, and you're clearly not a team player. Goodbye, all right? That's the reality. Whether people want to admit to that or not, in my experience, that's the reality. But great question, Auntie K. You raise a very valid point. V8 Super Special. If companies really cared about this stuff, they would have much more organic conversations with people, and that would be built into their culture. They would just be a thing that they did there, where they actually all cared about, the morale in general, and they actually elicited feedback from employees about how they can improve, and they actually followed it. That would be ingrained. That would be a thing that they just do every day there, They might not be able to satisfy everybody, but at least they put like a real genuine effort forward, in general about that stuff. That's how you would do it properly. You don't do it with some damn formal survey that goes to a department where like nobody knows and has never had contact with those people. No, that's not how you would do it. Did I do this one? V8 Super Special says, thanks, Bill. It's the networking part, let's say, through something like LinkedIn that feels icky. Could it be other networking avenues? No, do LinkedIn. And it's not icky. It's just about knowing what to say and knowing who to talk to, right? Like knowing who to talk to, knowing what to say to them, right? And you get a good response, okay? Now, the best way to convince you that it does work like this is for you to go out, like learn the right thing to do, go out, do it, see the results for yourself, and then no one can convince you, it can't be done or it doesn't work, right? Because you've seen it, you've done it, right? As I said, if you really want to see what that looks like, the best I've done, apart from my Get Hired course, which walks you through it, the best I've done is I've done that video that's linked to in the description box of this video. It's called How Successful Employees Get Hired, or it's How Successful People Get Hired. I think that's what it is. Look at the description box. There's a section called resources. I think there's 3 videos in there, and this is one of them. So that's where I walk you through, like, it's a screenshot of my desktop as I go and I show you. I don't just sit here and talk about it. I show you. This is what it looks like. This is where you click. This is what you say. This is what it, that kind of stuff. So check that out. But don't take my word for this. Like, I'm trying to make you aware of this. Okay? You can accept it or you can not. And if you do accept it, go and learn as much as you can about it from a variety of sources. And then what's more important is you don't just listen to what people say to you. You go out and you do it. You try things. And that's the best teacher. That will show you what can be done and what can't be done for you. Okay? then no one can tell you anything because you've done it, you know? Ron Wiki says, do you have any advice on navigating romantic interests at work? Oh, here we go. With movements like the Me Too encouraging vigilance, it can be challenging to approach someone without the risk of misunderstandings. Yeah, that's a very, very politically charged thing. I generally stay away from talking about things that are politically charged, certainly to that degree, because no good comes of it. People aren't open to learning about it. They if they believe one thing about it, that's what they stick to. If they believe another thing about it, that's what they stick to. There really is no discussion about it. It's whatever your mind, if your mind is already closed to how things are, a discussion won't help in any way. It just reinforces everybody's existing stance on it. All I would say is just be careful, okay? I've been in workplaces where people have met each other, people have then been in relationships together while working together, and then people have gotten married to each other while working together. I was not actively in participating in that stuff, but it happened all around me. It can get complicated. And, but I'm not in a position where I would say don't do it. I think that it can be done, but you just have to take certain things into account and do it properly, right? Like all romantic encounters. And, I'm not really an authority on that kind of stuff, so I'm not going to talk all about it. But it's like how in job interviews, when they ask you a question about conflict, how do you handle conflict? Tell me about a time where you disagreed with someone. Tell me about a time where, you really had an issue with somebody. How did you resolve it? The answer to any conflict-related question is always communication. You always address conflict with communication and then go into the details, right? I suspect it's the same for this kind of stuff. Romantic relationships at work. What's the answer? How do you approach it? How do you handle it? I would suspect the answer is always going to be some form of communication. Ask the other person, are you okay with this? Do you feel comfortable? That kind of stuff. But beyond that, I don't want to get into it. So that's what I would say. Zanzuki says, I have 2 associate degrees. Zanzuki. Now, you were talking about, lack of experience in the field. Yeah, you got some degrees. There's no one that could convince me that, for most, with the exception of highly specialized technical jobs that are highly regulated, like being a doctor or something, or being an engineer, if you don't have a degree in engineering, sorry, you probably can't work as an engineer. It's just that simple. But for almost anything else, anything that isn't, a professional level job that's got its own regulation and association, it would be hard to convince me that, you can't do it. There might be a learning curve. You might, like all jobs, you get a job, even if you've been in a role before, you get a new job where you're in that role again, but in a different company, there's still going to be a learning curve, right? So there's always a learning curve. It would take a lot to convince me that you couldn't do the job, with 2 associate degrees. There may be some elements of your personality and your communication style and work style that, if you don't have or you're unwilling to do, it might be a big problem. But other than that, you seem like someone that's highly trainable. And if you're prepared to learn and you're prepared to change, your maybe preconceived notions of things, there's nothing that would convince me that you couldn't do it, right? After a period of onboarding, right, is what they call it now, training. Hello, Bill. Hello. That almost looked like insult, but it's not. It's ISO. I don't know how you pronounce that. Knowing my luck, it'll be a totally weird pronunciation that I mess up. So no offense intended if I totally mispronounce your name and bastardize it. You're welcome, Zanzuki. Okay. So in response to your comment about the surveys, listen, they may be totally benign. I'm just saying that it has been known that companies have kind of done this underhanded crap. And in that case, like, why take the risk? Like, what's the reason to take a risk? To risk, black labeling yourself, or blacklisting yourself, making them want to take action against you just because you filled in something in a survey. Like, what would be the incentive to do that? Just play it safe. Sebastian Pluza says, it's funny how all this makes sense. Lie and stay for the paycheck. Okay. Especially labor-intensive jobs. Most jobs are repetitive, robotic. No. Some jobs certainly are, but not most. If you're talking about blue-collar jobs, yeah. Unskilled blue-collar jobs, yes. Right? But I wouldn't say robotic. You know what I mean? Pure Later asked some question one day, some answered truly and lost some days at work. Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like that's why this process is very ineffective, right? You're absolutely right to point out some of the flaws in this. Yeah. And the problem is that, I hate it. Like, if you're a sweet summer child and you're young and, you believe what people tell you all the time, unfortunately, you're going to be walking into a few traps, right? That's the other thing, that's stupid about this. Like that survey where they say, tell us how we can improve, right? And then you say, this process that I'm dealing with certainly could improve. Like you're not, it's very inefficient. It's very ineffective. You could maybe improve it by like doing this, right? And then your reward is they say, it sounds like you have a negative attitude and, you don't think we're doing a good job. Clearly you've got a problem working here. And then they fire you. That stuff has been known. That's an example of a bad employer, right? So you've got to, it's almost like there's like someone should write like a book called, the sort of, I don't know, employment survival guide, zombie survival guide, like the sort of everything you need to know for like younger people where you're going to get a career job, things that could be risky for you. When we're young, we tend to keep things real, right? We tend to tell people exactly what we think about, what's going on and stuff. And a lot of people learn pretty quickly, with a lot of employers that you do that and it doesn't go well for you, right? What they want to hear is, yes, sir. And they want to hear, no problem. I'll get right on that and it won't be an issue. And I have no complaints, right? Sometimes it's benign. It's not that they're evil. It's just that, yes, nothing is perfect. I agree that like, every little thing we do, it probably could be handled better in a perfect world. But unfortunately, I've got practical constraints on, what I can do. And although I appreciate your honesty about it, like, I just don't want to listen to that crap constantly, I don't have the powers of God. You know what I mean? So it can be benign. Other times it can be very, very malicious and very nefarious, right? It can be like living in a police state where like, you've got the thought police on you and anything less than, 100% enthusiasm and 100% agreement is like, to be met with consequences, right? This paranoia that exists in some organizations, right? And these weird cultures where it's almost like a cult, that's very real. Someone should write a book where they put all this stuff in a book, and they say, this is what can happen. So make sure that you don't do this and you don't do that. I think if someone wrote a book like that, and you gave this to young people, they would just drop out. They would say, no, I'm not getting a job. If this is what's in store for me, what I have to deal with. Zanzuki, yes, every company has a certain way it likes to do things. Yes. Yeah, it's called their culture. Culture simply means how we do things here. That's all it means. How we dress, how we talk, what our expectations are in different situations. Like the amount of effort that people are expected to put forward as a standard thing. The types of things that it's appropriate to say there or inappropriate, that varies by organization, right? Every company's got their own version of this, and how they do things there, that's what culture means, right? If you've ever wondered about that word, what it means, that's what it means. Maybe they have certain retarded rituals and stuff that don't make any sense. Maybe they give everyone 3 weeks off for Christmas, in one place, but then everyone's expected to work right through Christmas or whatever holiday in another place. It's just, it's all part of their culture, the way things are done there. Survival guide for dummies. Yeah. Are you a dummy? Then you should get this book. That kind of thing. Have I got a book for you? Now, maybe you're just, you're not really a dummy, but you're just kind of not really tuned in, right? Or maybe you're an absolutely blithering idiot. You will benefit from this book. First chapter is How to Tie Your Shoes. Yep, honesty is not very desirable. Well, in certain circles, absolutely. In certain other circles, people will pay big money to get honesty. Sebastian says, maturity and the reality of job life. Emotional control. This is life. Wash, rinse, repeat. Okay, I don't fully understand what you mean, but those are certainly aspects of a lot of corporate culture. Anti-K says, what kinds of questions would you ask the hiring manager to gauge whether it's a company you would enjoy working at? You can't. Because if you really wanted to do that, you'd be asking tough questions. And number one, they can't give honest answers to tough questions for a variety of reasons. Like if you said, okay, what's something pretty benign? You say, what's the worst aspect of working here? Or if you could change one aspect of working here, presumably that is not ideal, what would it be, right? Now, a lot of times, first of all, they can't answer that because that would be crossing the line into behavior that does not represent their organization in a favorable light. They're not going to turn around and say, well, you know what, to be honest with you, the morale here sucks. And if there's one thing I could change, that would be the thing I would change. I'd tell the managers, for God's sake, take a vacation, lighten up. They like to do certain things here that just, it's a real downer for everyone. There's mandatory overtime, things like this. They do things that really make people miserable here. That's what I'd change. I'd make it a priority to care about morale and do little things that help boost it, right? Are they going to say that to you in a job interview where you're the candidate and they're the interviewer? No, they're not going to say that, right? Even if they thought that way, they're not going to say that, right? The other thing is that you ask this question of them, it kind of makes them squirm a bit, right? And they don't like that. That means they're going to think more unfavorably of you. It's like, you're trying to put the screws to me. I don't appreciate that. This isn't fun anymore. You're asking me tough questions that I'm having to deflect because I can't answer them or don't want to answer them. That's not fun. I have a bad feeling about you now. Is this what working with you is going to be? You're going to be the type of person that makes me squirm and creates awkwardness whenever I have to talk to you, right? So it's bad for you in the job interview. So it's a double whammy. Not only do you not get honest answers, it actually, increases the odds that you're not going to get hired, right? So for that reason, you can't really get this information from a job interview. That's not what you should be trying to get, okay? The way you would get that information is not by asking these people, right? I want to know the dirt on you, so I'm going to ask you. No, you go and you do your independent research. That's how you get the dirt on them. What are people saying about them online? Do you know someone who has worked for them? Go and talk to them about them. Like we were talking about LinkedIn, okay? Here's something you can do with LinkedIn. Go on LinkedIn and do a people search in your hometown for people who are former employees of this company that you're thinking of working for, okay? You can find them. So like you type in the name of the company and then you say search and you get a whole bunch of search results. These are individuals. And you look at the ones that are former employees. They're not currently working there, but maybe their previous job, maybe recently previous job, maybe 3 months ago they were working there, or a year ago they were working there. And you could also send them a message. You could say, would I be able to give you a quick phone call? I could end up being employed by this company. I'd very much like to talk to you about, your thoughts on working for that employer. Something like that. Or ask you about your experiences working for that employer. Something like that. And, a lot of people will not respond or they'll say no, but some people will say yes. They'll say, sure, here's my number. And you call them up, you have a quick phone call. You say, hi, thanks very much for taking my call. Listen, here's what I was wondering. I may be offered a job to work for these people. I'm not sure yet, but I understand that you have worked for them. What would you say about them? Was it a good experience or not so good experience? And then just let them talk. Right? That's how you get information on the company. That would be a very good way of getting information. Now, it's going to be anecdotal. It's going to be one person's opinion, but it's better than nothing, right? If you do that with a couple of people, like say this is like a big deal for you, you're going to get there could be a really good career job in the wings. So if you can phone 3 people and say, what were your experiences? What do you think of these guys? Are they good? Are they not so good? Was it, can I ask, why did you leave? Right? Or what attracted you to them in the first place? And then why did you leave? Right? That would be useful knowing. It's anecdotal, but you get 3 independent sources. Right? So you could do stuff like this. Now, if you're absolutely, how can I put this, shit scared of talking to somebody on the phone, I would highly encourage you to just push yourself a little out of your comfort zone. Do something like this. Number one, in a perfect world, you shouldn't be scared of talking to someone on the phone. The phone it can be an incredible tool to give you all kinds of information that can help you succeed. You can maybe try and do this by sending messages, sending a quick note virtually, through LinkedIn's Messenger or emails or something. I don't know. But it would be better if you could just talk to them, like on the phone, at the very least. It'd be even better if you could go and talk to them face to face. Okay, but that would be the way to do it. Don't try and get that information through the recruiter at a job interview. Or a hiring manager, even the hiring manager. The hiring manager works for them. They have a vested interest to not make them look like a bunch of idiots and make them look attractive as an employment opportunity for you. They're not going to shoot themselves in the foot by saying, well, to be honest, this is a crappy place to work. And, I don't know what kind of boss I am. I'd like to think I'm a good boss, but all my employees keep leaving. So, they're not going to say that stuff. Suraj K says, is BPO, what's BPO? You can't use acronyms when you talk to somebody. I don't know where in the world you're coming from, so don't use acronyms. Is BPO a good job to work at the age of 26 after pursuing bachelor's in computer science engineering? Let me know what BPO is and I'll be happy to answer. David says, how about asking the hiring manager one thing that you like most about the company? Yeah, like that's a positive thing. So they shouldn't have any hang-ups or issues answering it. And the problem is that, like, consider the source. You're not going to get honest information from these people. If they want to hire you, they're not going to like shoot themselves in the foot, like I just said. Okay, so that makes what they say of very limited value. Okay, the purpose of asking the questions is to make them think more of you, right? That's the real purpose. It's not for you to collect useful information on them. If they don't end up offering you the job, what the hell does it matter? You know what I mean? So get the job offer at least, and then you can concern yourself with, is this a good company to work for? If you don't get the job offer, what does it matter? What does any of this matter? You know? So ask questions that make them think more highly of you. Okay? So an example of that might be saying, like, listen, I understand that you guys do this kind of work and that you're wanting to get into this other business. Okay? Now, this role in this department, okay, that you're the head of, how would this be able to assist, do you think, with the company's goals of getting into that area that you've announced that you're wanting to do, right? Something like that. And they'll go, that's a good question. And you're quite tuned in to know that, you know? I can tell that, you know, you're kind of tuned into this. And that is a very intelligent question because, you know, we have to really make ourselves relevant and assist with this. It's a big priority for the company. And I've been wondering this myself. And this is what I think, right? You know, like, it makes you look good by asking stuff like that. Farmer Brian, that's a good name. I was asked by my district manager to apply for a general manager position at a new location that we are opening. I still have to compete with outside applicants and interview with her. Any advice? Listen, I don't know your situation, but all things being equal, if it were me, I'd take it. I'd say, absolutely, yes. I'm not only interested in that, I'm passionate about that. Because if it's a chance for you to move up, like, I'm assuming you're not a general manager, and this is going up a notch, okay? That's going to be very useful, okay? It might be a branch office out somewhere in a different location, I don't know. But like a general manager, for those who don't know, a general manager is someone who has profit and loss responsibility. So that means, you know, a lot of jobs in a company are you work in like a small department, like you work in the marketing department, or you work in the operations department, or you work in the accounting department, you know, right? And usually those departments, their job is either to generate revenue, to generate money, like in the sales department, that's what they do, or you are a cost. It costs the company money to run your department. You're the maintenance department. You don't make any money. They spend money on you and then you provide a service, right? So it's called a cost center. So a cost center or a profit center. Sales is the profit center. Maintenance or accounting is a cost center, okay? So leading those individual departments, you've got functional managers, okay? And then sitting on top of them, usually you have general managers. General managers are responsible for running something that is both a profit center and a cost center. That's technically what a general manager is. They understand both sides. And basically what it means is that you're running a self-contained business unit, something that makes money and it runs itself. That's usually what the implication is. There's obviously all kinds of exceptions, but that's the general rule. Now, if you've never been in a general management position, okay, it can be a real career boost for you to do it because chances are you'll have either come from a cost center or a profit center, but you won't have done both, okay? So this is an opportunity not only to move up a notch, but it's to learn that other side of it, okay? So now you know both. And if you're in a position where you can run a business unit, something that makes money, okay, and it runs itself, that amplifies your capabilities. You can now move into different areas. Oh, you ran a store. Okay, well, maybe you can run a garage, right? Or a warehouse, something like that, right? Because, how could somebody say you're not qualified for that? It's like, well, I've run an operation and we were successful. I have a track record of success. We made more money than we spent on ourselves. It was a profit. We ended up turning a profit and I ran it, right? So don't tell me I can't do this, okay? Because I understand making money. You know what I mean? So it could be a very good thing for you. Depending on what your goals are, depending on what the situation is, it could be very good. So if it were me, all things being equal, I would probably take it if you've never done that kind of thing before. Obviously, it may be complicated if you have to relocate or anything like that. Farmer Brian says, I did apply. I'm a driver at an equipment rental company and it will be a significant raise. Okay, yeah, all the more reason to do it. But listen, learn business. Now look, obviously, okay, I'm biased, but yes, I've got a tool to help you with that, okay? There are many resources out there to help you, okay? But one way or another, learn business, okay? If you're going to be a general manager, learn business. It will help you do the job well and be successful. Okay, what you don't want to do is have them give you an opportunity like that and then you completely mess it up. You run that operation right into the ground, right? Like that would be bad. It would be bad on many levels. Number one, they probably won't offer you a good job again. Number two, it could have been an opportunity for you to really learn how to run something successfully. You know what I mean? So if you're going to get that job and you don't know anything about business or the other side of things, take some kind of crash course in it. Like I've got one, you could get it from other places, but I mean, obviously I recommend that you take it from me, right? There's a link in the description to that course. That'll do it for you. But whichever way it works out, learn your craft and then you could really kick ass. You could become an executive. You could go from truck driver to essentially executive through this job if you play your cards right. And that is your goal. Like you want to do that. This is the vehicle to do that if you have any interest in it. I got a super chat. Thank you very much to Jomar. Says, I just got into salary negotiations and they want to discuss salary and benefits over the phone instead of an offer letter. Is this a red flag? No, that's not a red flag in itself. Okay. It's quicker. Okay. And they're getting a response in real time. So the disadvantage can be that there's pressure for you to not think about your answer because they're like right there. They ask a question and they expect an immediate answer. The reality is that you might have to think about things. You might have to do some research first, right? So don't be pressured into having to give them an immediate answer. Sometimes they will use this intentionally as a tactic because the more time you have to think about it and to prepare a response, the better your response will be. And therefore the worse for them, right? So sometimes they like to put you on the spot as a sort of tactic to try and get you to acquiesce to something, to agree to something that, maybe is not in your best interest, right? So remember, just because it's on the phone doesn't mean you can't say, I'll get back to you on that, right? Okay, so just keep that in mind. The good thing about it being on the phone is that you can, I assume you're going to be talking to the person at the organization who's taking the lead in hiring you. So maybe the hiring manager or the recruiter you've been dealing with the entire time, something like that. Okay, so this is an opportunity for you to express true gratitude and enthusiasm for the role, which will count in your favor. You don't get to do that when they just present you with a letter and you have to reply with like a letter or an email or something. Okay. So you can express genuine gratitude. You can say, thank you very much. I think this is incredibly exciting. I was really hoping that you guys would get back to me with this, and this is wonderful. So first of all, thank you off the bat. I'm really excited about pursuing this and really seeing where this leads us. I got a good feeling about it. Something like that. And they go, oh, thank you. I got a good feeling about working with you. And that's what you want. Right? So that's one advantage of doing it on the phone. But as I say, probably the biggest disadvantage is if they demand an immediate answer on the phone in real time. That can be bad. So don't be too shy to say, well, thank you very much. I will need a little bit of time to consider and to think about it. And I will most likely get back to you in, say, 2 days or in less than 48 hours. I'll be able to certainly give you an answer on that. Hopefully that is okay. And if they say, no, that's unacceptable, that's a red flag. That's like, you know what I mean? Because what you're asking for, certainly 2 days, 48 hours, that's reasonable. No one would suggest that's not reasonable in these type of situations. Okay, so don't be too shy to just say that. I know we're on the phone. I know we're talking right now, but I need some time to think about it before I can give you an answer. And I would almost say that as a default. I'd say don't agree to anything or don't say anything really important in real time on the phone. I would, just leave it at like, okay, that's great. Within 48 hours, I will give you your answer. But good question. Addie K says, how would you answer when the interviewer asks, I see you are proficient in Java and Python. Which would you be more interested in working with? Let's say you've done your research and the company generally employs both types of coders, but you don't know which they currently are looking for if you got the interview through networking. Oh, very simple. You say both. And you say, I don't have a preference. I do both. I do both very well. And I can do either, whichever one you need. I'm not more proficient in one over the other. I do both equally. So that's my answer. You know what I mean? Like that's how I would answer that. Because you're walking into a trap. You don't know what they're looking for. So, you know what I mean? They're trying to catch you. And I'm sure the reality is that whichever one they are looking for, whatever your skills in it, you would be able to bring them up to whatever they need in a very short amount of time. So you might have to go back and bone up on, Java or whatever, or whatever may be the case. But I don't think that would be a problem for you. That's the assumption I'm going on, right? Now, if that's true, then the answer is clear. It's both. Why say something that's going to risk eliminating you at this point, right? Farmer Brian says, thank you for the advice. You're absolutely welcome, Farmer Brian. I'm glad it's useful. Zanzuki, I wish you luck on your endeavors, Farmer Brian. Yes, that's nice. And so do I. Okay, I have about another 15 minutes. I could answer questions. So if you are struggling with anything, wondering anything, get in the chat. I see there's 26 people here. You guys are awesome. Hopefully you're getting some value from this. My incessant babbling in a monotone about jobs. I did something earlier today that I thought was kind of cool. I sort of opened a chat GPT prompt and was critiquing it. Because sometimes, don't get me wrong, chat GPT is an incredibly useful tool and everyone should be using it, and other AI tools. That's the real thing that's going on right now. And right now, you have a lot of people using AI tools to help them get a job, at least the conventional, the standard method of getting a job, where you see a job posting online, you respond with an application, you end up talking to a recruiter if you're lucky, or unlucky as the case may be, and you do job interviews and then you get an offer, right? That's what I call the standard method. as opposed to networking and other informal methods that are much more effective and much more positive. You get like a more positive result. But for the people who are applying through the standard method of going through recruiters, a lot of people are now using AI tools to help them do two things. Number one, to be more efficient, to be able to like apply for more jobs. You can now customize your resume so you can apply for like 20 jobs in a day easy, where each one has a customized resume. You couldn't do that before AI tools. It would be so labor intensive to do this that you couldn't do 20 jobs a day like that. Now you can, right? So they're using it to be more efficient. They're also using it to be more effective, to be able to do better and increase their likelihood of getting an interview, right? So it's like a double whammy, like, two bonuses there, a double bonus, right? So if you are not using AI tools, you are now at a disadvantage because you're competing against people who are, and they can apply for more jobs than you, and they can, put better things, like they can phrase their resumes and stuff and their cover letters and things in ways that will give them a higher chance of getting selected for an interview than you, right? This is the unfortunate reality. How can I put it? This kind of crap works on recruiters. I'm being unkind. Things like ChatGPT, they can help you rephrase things in such a way that it genuinely makes it better for other people. That gives other people what they're looking for. Okay, but the point I'm trying to make is that you should start using these AI tools if you are not using these AI tools. And I did this before, where I just sort of, pulled up a prompt and started like asking things, right? And then we sort of critiqued it together. I think I'm going to do more of that in the future. So now you've got this wonderful situation where some people are using AI tools to get a job. They're getting like ChatGPT or something to write their resume for the most part. And then that's going up against an ATS system that the recruiters have, where AI is now filtering the resumes, right? So it's like AI trying to outwit another AI, right? And you and me and the recruiters are just spectators, in this, right? It's a wonderful situation. It has amplified the stupidity of this. But the one effect that it's having is that the people who are not using AI are now at a disadvantage. That's the one real effect. Okay. Leo Sunshine. I know Leo Sunshine. You've been here before. What's your opinion about people enrolling in a master's degree of science in organizational leadership instead of an MBA because they might not want to take a hard math and accounting classes? I don't know much about that qualification you mentioned, organizational leadership. I assume it's a subset of an MBA where you do the organizational theory part, maybe, possibly other things like marketing, but based on what you've just said, you wouldn't do accounting or finance, or maybe even economics. You wouldn't do that kind of stuff what's my opinion of it? I have no opinion. Here's what, I can tell that you're interested. So here's what you should do if you haven't done this. Okay, if you want to know how useful it is, here's what you do. You go on LinkedIn and you do a people search. So and what I didn't mention before is that, either you need the paid version of LinkedIn for it to fully unlock the search results, or you get that month free that they give you, like a trial month of the premium version. So you don't have to pay anything. Just get the free month of it and then cancel before the end of the month. And then they don't charge you, or they don't, or anything like that. Okay. So anyway, do that. Now do a search for these qualifications. Okay. And an MBA has been around for forever. But this other one you mentioned, the organizational leadership, Masters of Science in Organizational Leadership, do a search for that and do a people search. So you see the individuals where that appears in their profile. and then look at their profiles. Okay, you might want to narrow this to your hometown. So it's like within your hometown or within your industry, look for that qualification. Now, if you find it, and all these people are in like very high positions, and it really seems like that's what got them the job because they don't have any other like major stuff on their profile, that tells you something. If you can't find any search results for this thing, that tells you something else. It's not really out there. It's not being recognized. It's not getting people results. Maybe it's new, and but if it's new, then it obviously won't be a standard thing at this point, right? That this is like the be all end all or this big new thing. Okay. Now it depends what your goals are, but I'm going on the assumption that it's a subset of what you take in an MBA. Okay. That may not be true because I don't know. And if it's a subset, obviously, I think a full MBA would be better than a subset of an MBA. So that's kind of my opinion. I mean, if you can't do math, but yet you're in charge of things, is that a good thing? You know what I mean? I'll leave that one with you. You don't want to take accounting, but you want to be in charge. Is that a good thing? Is that the right person to have in that role? You answer that. What do you think of that? But interesting question. Anti-K says, regarding the coding question, I understand that the answer obviously needs to be both and avoid getting eliminated. However, how do I phrase my answer to avoid looking desperate in the vein of all doing? Well, no. Well, I mean, I gave you a sample answer when I answered that like 10 minutes ago. They say, which one are you more proficient in? And if someone asked me that question, I would say, well, I'm proficient in both. I could do both very well. I have done both. I have done similar volumes of work in each one. So I don't feel that, I'm weak in one and strong in another. I feel that I can handle anything that anyone gives me in both. That's my answer. I don't think that comes across as desperate. I think that comes across as I'm being honest with you about, the reality of this. Like if you said like, oh, I can do whatever you need. Like, yeah, that would maybe appear a bit desperate and a bit disingenuous, but you know what I mean? It's not what you're willing to do. They're asking you about, are you stronger in one? It's not about the future. It's about like the reality now. It's the present and the past. And the answer is, I'm not answering what I would do. I'm answering what I am. And what I am is I'm strong in both. Echo says, I get super nervous and forget what to say. Well, you need to pay somebody to stand about 5 feet behind you and about 2 feet to the right that smacks you upside the head and says, what the hell, get with it, moron. Get confident, stupid, right? That's what you need someone to say to you, right? I'm just joking, of course. Echo, listen, here's what you need to do. No one is born like supremely talented and confident. Okay. I don't care what anybody says. No one is a natural at any of this, like whether it's public speaking or interviewing or whatever context you're talking about where you get nervous and forget what to say. Okay. Everyone has to work at it to get good. Some people have to work harder than others, but everyone has to work on it. No one is just instantly brilliant. Okay. So practice makes perfect. If you get nervous and you forget what to say in a job interview, you practice doing job interviews. Now, you could go out and get real job interviews, or what's a very useful tool is to just work with a friend or family member and say like, look, let's do some mock interviews, some pretend interviews. You be the interviewer and I'll be the candidate, and you ask me questions. Either you give them a list of questions or you say, you figure out the questions. Go on the internet or just make up some questions. You pretend to be the interviewer, ask me some questions, and we're going to practice this. And if it feels weird, that's good, because you want it to feel a bit weird, because the whole point of practicing this is that you want to get over the nervousness, right? So the more, maybe the first few times you do this, it's bad. It doesn't go well. But maybe after the 10th time of being asked the same question, where you've gone away and you've had a chance to figure out what the right answer is and then practice it a couple times, after the 10th interview, pretend interview, you get better. And then the more you do of this, the more comfortable you feel, the better you do, and you end up kicking ass, okay? So don't feel too bad about it, okay? You just got to go and do those things. You got to work on it, okay? If you work on this, you're going to be able to conquer it. It might take a couple of weeks, or it might even take like a year, of working on this on and off, right? Depending on what your situation is. But you do it enough, you will conquer it, okay? You're going to crush it. So life's a journey. We all start out not being good at things, and then we end up being good at some things, right? Leo Sunshine. Oh, my voice is really packing in. Leo Sunshine says, that's a great idea. I will see if there are folks with it and see if they are successful at their current job. And what you could do, Leo Sunshine, like this is that qualification. What you can do is there's nothing to stop you from reaching out to them. LinkedIn is not just a way to see other people's profiles. You can actually use LinkedIn to contact them. So if you want to know, you could contact the person and say, like, listen, I understand from your profile that you have this qualification. Would it be okay if I called you on the phone, or, if they're in your hometown or something, if we grabbed a quick coffee, like, and I asked you some questions about your experiences, would that be okay with that qualification? I'm thinking of maybe getting it myself, but I'm not sure. Would I be able to ask you a few questions about how it went for you? Now, some people won't respond. Some people will say no, but some people will say yes. And then you can go and you can ask them whatever you want. And then you can hopefully come out of this knowing everything about it, exactly how it works, and maybe some of its good points, bad points, right? It depends how deep you want to go. But if you want to go deep, you can use that as a way of really going deep. And then you can make a very informed decision of what you want to do. Maybe they can tell you stuff like, how useful was it in getting a job, right? Like, where would you get honest information about that? That would only exist in the heads of the people who have actually tried to get jobs. And maybe they haven't blabbed about it before. What's the incentive to talk about it, right? You can't get that through the school, because they've got a vested interest in, like a conflict of interest in selling that program, right? So they want to tell you it's the most useful thing ever since sliced bread, right? I think we should go back to unsliced bread. You just like karate chop the loaf in half, and you like take the stick of butter and you just smear it on and down the hatch, as I smack my monitor around. I don't think we've explored that as much as we should. Leo Sunshine says, you are right, an MBA is more solid of a, well, yeah, if it is, if I've got that right, but I don't know. So that would be the first thing to check out. Jomar has sent another super chat. 2 super chats from one individual. Jomar, thank you very much, Jomar. That's very kind of you. Okay, just had that call. They offered less than the minimum posted range. First gave them an initial number, but after the interview, I slightly raised my amount after declining the low offer. Think it's a loss? I can't say. It depends. I mean, people could be playing hardball, right? Like if they gave you an offer below your minimum of what you would accept, right? Usually when the way these things go, I mean, maybe you know all this, but the way that these things go is you start off with a very low number for them. They make the initial offer very low, right? In the same way that if you had to give a number first, you would offer very high, right? You shoot for the moon and then it goes down and you settle on something you'd accept, right? So it really doesn't matter what they think, okay? The only thing that matters in this process is that you understand what's right for you to do. So if another company would pay you 50, right? maybe it doesn't make sense to work for these people for 10, right? So how do you know this? You go out and you get an offer for 50, or you go out and get interviews lined up for jobs that do pay 50, right? Okay, that's how you start to get evidence of that, right? And if you've got an offer in your pocket that's 50 and these people offer you 10, obviously it's like, no, I'm sorry, I respectfully decline your offer. Or you do what recruiters do and you just say, I'll get back to you, and then you never talk to them again, right? Which I have done. So, it doesn't matter what they think. The only thing that matters is what's appropriate for you. What amount of money is reasonable for you? What could you likely get, right? If another company could turn around and offer you 100, would it make sense for you to take this offer for 10? Well, that's going to be affected by your situation, right? Maybe you're absolutely desperate for a job right now. You need money. In that case, you will just take this because it's real, right? So you need to find out your options, and you need to research your options with hard evidence, okay? And then you know exactly what you're worth. You know exactly what's reasonable to ask. And if they can't pay it, sorry, no dice, right? If you don't know that stuff and you're desperate for a job, then you would probably accept something, even if it's lower than what you want, right? There's a lot of factors here, but you've got to get hard evidence about what you're actually worth and what makes sense to you. Once you know that, it's not about persuasion. It's about knowing your options. That's what it's about. Anti-K says, good stuff, Bill. Thanks for the answers and have a great rest of your day. Thank you, Anti-K. You asked some very intelligent things today. Same to Zanzuki. Thank you very much. Thanks to Jomar for the super chats. Thanks to everybody who participated, asked a question. Thank you to the people listening who didn't ask a question, but they're tuned into this. You guys are awesome. I wish you nothing but the best. If you're doing job search, it's a ridiculous process. Ridiculous. There's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of bullshit out there. But it is possible to navigate this crap and ignore all the fluff and achieve some good results. And you can do it. It's just a matter of knowing what to do and using some of the tools. So I will be back with another episode of Honest HR Nitrous, this time next week. It's a weekly thing. Until then, you can reach me through my live streams if you have questions or whatever. And I will be back next week. So thank you very much. You guys take care.